the new coaches that they're starting the journey now. So we can just five, just quick.
Right. What my first tip? Tip number 2 would be to that would actually be point number 3. Tip number 4 would just to be and the last tip that I would say is just to.
Can you tell us a session for the foundation year? Actually, an arrival activity. Can you just?
Yeah, of course. So the idea that I came up with for the arrival activity was a game of Attack the Box.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Dive Football Coach. I've wanted to do this for a while and I just realized I have many stories to share, and I also know many people who have their own background stories, like Danny here. Whether you're a coach, you're a volunteer, or you're just working with football, please stay with us. I hope you find valuable these conversations. So please welcome Danny Sigers. Danny, thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Very welcome, mate. Happy to be here. Happy to be the first one as well, which is always.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Danny, welcome to the podcast. Can you introduce a little bit yourself, and can you tell us a little bit your background in football and in coaching?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, Danny, I'm 26 currently. I'm getting a little bit older, but with age comes experience, so I'm happy about that. I've been coaching for around 8 years now. My coaching and my love for coaching started after my love for football died a little bit after coming out of academies and going through several injuries when I was younger. I sort of understood that the dream was ending for me of becoming that world-class player. So I sort of tried to find my own way within coaching, sort of loved the idea of tactics and player development. I was always on Football Manager when I was younger and FIFA career mode. So for me, it was a really, really easy transition to try and pursue a career in a sector of the world which I actually enjoyed, rather than sitting in an office and doing my 9-to-5 work. I wanted to try and see how far I could push my passion to the very best of where I wanted to be, and I'm doing pretty well for myself at the moment. Obviously, you never stop learning, and I'm sure we'll touch on that during the podcast. But there's still a long way for me to go in my journey, and I'm sure in 5 years from now, I won't be aware of maybe what my journey lies. But I'm here. I'm thriving to the best of my ability, and just looking to continue my coaching.
Perfect. Before we just go into introduction to our theme, can you give us 5 tips for the new coaches that are starting the journey now? So we can just 5, just quick.
Right. Number 1, don't expect everything to be perfect. Allow yourself to fail would be one of my first tip. Tip number 2 would be to get as many minutes on the grass as possible or on the Astro. Don't let yourself just be a 1 session a week type person. Some of the best advice I've ever been given is to get as many minutes on the grass as possible with as many different age groups. Take risks. That would actually be point number 3, to take risks. Don't just let yourself be a 1-person coach, and be able to coach different age groups and different genders and different topics across the whole board. Tip number 4 would just to be yourself. You are a product of your own environment. So make sure that you really portray your personality and your coaching styles within your coaching. And the last tip that I would say is just to enjoy it. I've come across a lot of coaches recently that maybe don't enjoy their work, and it always confuses me to why they don't enjoy it. But as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, then that would be the main thing for me to really give as a tip to young coaches who are starting off in the game.
Valuable conversations, valuable tips there. And I think the last one, I've seen it a lot as well. Like sometimes, because you know what's happening, we think that it's just a job, but you have to go a little bit with the routine. It's quite difficult to enjoy every minute, and many coaches, they see it just as a job, and we're just taking away all the enjoyment that it brings you. And I think which is sometimes you just need to go back and remember why you started it. That's what I do. If it's just a little tip that I always learn, how to just go back, see the bigger picture, see how I started, why I started, and then just, enjoy a bit more. I love that. So can you remember your first coaching session?
I can and I can't. So when you asked me, I really, really thought back and sort of went all the way back to what it might have looked like. And there's a couple of different environments I want to touch on. So when you start out with coaching, a lot of people think you're going to go straight into academies and you're going to teach the best kids, and it's going to be the greatest experience that you're going to have, and this journey is going to kickstart right now, right today. For me, my first experience was actually coaching an after school club, and sort of being given the opportunity to get actually some paid work for a company in St Albans where I was based, and going to an after school club with a really experienced coach who taught me a lot along the way. I saw him very recently actually and said hello to him. But for me, it was the reality check of, right, this is not going to be perfect. This is not going to be as well thought out. I can have as many notes on a planning page as possible, but actually it's the reaction within the session of how you adapt and work with the children to make it the best of your ability. They don't care about all the fancy diagrams that you do. They really just care about enjoying the session that you put on, and then also can they get the outcomes of the session that you plan. So if you plan the lesson, please make sure you plan the learning too. Don't just plan the session for your right to be a coach with all the fancy diagrams. Make sure there's actually a topic, and make sure there's actually a way to pave the game forwards. But my session went horribly. I remember it was more behaviour management. It was 30 screaming kids on an after school club. They've all just finished school on a Wednesday. They don't want to be there. Some of them are just in childcare. Some of them were really, really talented footballers as well, which I went on to coach for many years. And I remember that because I always say to them that they were in my first ever session, and they must have been in year 2 now, then, and now they're in year 8 or 9, which is really, really scary. But yeah, my first session was horrible. I just ended up putting them into matches in the end, and then just trying to be a referee rather than be a coach.
Yeah, it's difficult, and yeah, as you say, like if they don't even want to be there, so that's I think the main thing. Because if you go in a team, as you say, in academy, someone expects that, okay, the kids want to be there, they want to enjoy the football, but they want to parents just send them there to just spend their time and have fun and they come back with a smile and actually coming back, because I think lately lots of kids giving up football, and it's very important. Just come back, just smile, have fun, enjoy the time with your friends, and come back. Because I've seen lots of new coaches taking, as you say, like diagrams, they start creating sessions, and out of nowhere, like there's no actual learning there. And I've learned something from FSC now. I did my certification, and they taught me, do first the planning, the learning outcome, and then create the actual session. Because whatever you do, any session that you do, it's going to have everything in. The thing is where you're going to focus, and it's quite valuable to learn that. What was the biggest challenge when you start the coaching?
I think the biggest challenge for me, there was one or two. For me, it was patience. I'm very impatient as a coach, and actually having to remind a player maybe of a certain game that we're playing or the rules, or having to sort of remind them of what we did last week was a real challenge for me, because where I was always in and around the Cat 1 academy system when I was younger, if I didn't know what I did last week or in the session before, I would be shouted at by my coaches. And I'd never really got to experience the world of grassroots football. I was in grassroots football for a little bit, and I was sort of in and out of it. I was a season in, and then I'd have a season on trial somewhere. So actually, my expectation of myself was to always be progressing myself. And I sort of, going back to that after school club and some of the teams that I taught in the beginning, it was, they may take 2 or 3 weeks to understand the topic rather than get it within the first 5 minutes. I think it's one of my biggest pet peeves of academy at the moment, or academy coaches at the moment, is because they already have a semi-finished product and they don't actually ever got to experience the true graft and determination and patience of a grassroots coach that's had them in their team for a year or 2 years. They get this boy or girl who have already had 4 or 5 years worth of training, and they can do all the L turns, the V turns, the Zidanes, the Joe Coles. They can do all that already. Whereas the actual patience in coaching lies on coaching the kids that are very new to the game, who, like you said, just want to be there to have fun. They might be a fan of a certain club in a local area, and for them, they don't understand the world of football at the moment. They just want to kick a ball, score lots of goals, and go home at the end of it with a certificate or a player card or whatever it might look like. So patience is a huge challenge to me when I was a younger coach, and it still is now. I'm very impatient, but that's because I've got high standards of myself. And the second challenge that I had was actually trying to get across a lot of different points as possible within a session. And when I actually was able to finally realize, you know what 1 point or 1 or 2 points is enough for a session. I'm not trying to make this player a superhuman in a day. That was the biggest sort of realization for me as a coach, is I can take my time with this group of players. I don't need to rush into different topics. I can do 3 or 4 weeks on the same topic so they can really understand the learning.
Yeah, to don't make it complicated, because sometimes we're just organizing things. We say like we put down on the paper, and the kids are getting confused. And at the end, they're going home and they don't learn anything. It's quite good actually, because you say like, it's difficult to manage these kind of situations. And what would be your advice to the new coaches? Do they go straight to the academy level, or do they start from grassroots first?
First of all, you wouldn't be able to do it nowadays. The game's changed a little bit, because if you've played in the professional system, obviously you can get a fast track as such through the PFA into academy coaching. But now, because of the qualification barrier that exists within the UK and throughout the world, it's so difficult to get a job at a high level before having X amount of years of experience in being able to get your UEFA B and your A license. And I saw a job the other day on LinkedIn, and it was for a volunteer role within an academy, and you needed to be an A license coach.
Well,
to put that in perspective, you need, I think the A license is around £3,500 in England. You know, the B license is £1,000. So that's already £5,500 that you would needed to have spent or been given to you to be able to access that qualification. And then the academy wanted you to have it to be a volunteer, sort of an unpaid role. So actually, the barrier has always been hard, but I think it's never been harder than it is at the moment. So the grassroots football scene is that's how football starts in every country. You look at the Brazilian favelas, you look at sort of the American sort of AstroTurf pitches. It varies throughout the world on what grassroots looks like. But in essence, every kid in the world will never start out without grassroots football, without the basics of the game.
I agree, and mainly academies right now, they're getting too mechanical, like they're making the football a little bit ticking boxes. And as you say, like if you don't grow from the basics, then it's going to be a bit difficult for the next step to have a little bit of creativity. It's very important to just taking a job and the academies. It's very, very difficult, and it's better if you just start from the very basics and then build yourself, taking these qualifications. Are qualifications matter?
It is a tricky question. I personally think they don't at the lower levels. However, you need to go and do your own educational research. So, for example, when I started out, I was doing my degree. I was doing my undergraduate degree. So I've got my undergraduate, my bachelor's honours, and I've also got my master's now. So in terms of education and coach education, I was very proactive on learning and understanding the game. Some players think, or some coaches think that you need, an A license or a pro license coach to be the best coach you can be. As long as you can give across the details that the player requires, then I don't necessarily think that you need that qualification at the top of your head. However, you will need to understand that information and be able to apply that information to the players that you're coaching. It's not just a case of, he's a pro licensed coach, but I know more than him. No, like you might know the same amount of him because he's been taught through the academy system and through the educational system. You're not just going to be able to get that qualification without a lot of hard work. So if you have the qualifications, fair play, you're doing really well. Maybe they've been given to you through a pathway, that's fine. However, I don't think it's a necessity to be the best coach to have the qualifications that some clubs require.
I think it's depends the age as well you want to coach, because I've seen a LinkedIn job that he was saying that we want UEFA A license for ages foundation level. And I was thinking, what do you need? Like UEFA A right now is always depends on 11-a-side. Like they care about the 11-a-side. They don't care about the foundation level. I do that on UEFA C. How do the new coaches, if they want to start the foundation here, how do they start coaching? Like if they don't have this UEFA A, what would you suggest? What would be the best first step for them to take? What do you think?
I think, and I mentioned it previously, I think just getting as many minutes on the pitch as possible, creating session plans, learning to fail, learning to succeed, taking little bits from one session and dragging them to the next, and keeping that momentum going is the best thing that you can do for yourself. There's a lot of coaches at the moment, and including myself, that actually, if you can't get a name for yourself within the actual coaching space, then can you highlight your own coaching through the world of social media, through Instagram, through TikTok? There's a couple of coaches on Instagram, even today I was looking at, that highlight and showcase their coaching abilities, and they get hundreds of thousands of followers and views, and actually that gives them the spotlight that they may necessarily need. So making a name for yourself is really, really big, and creating a platform where people can go, well, you tell me you can coach and you've got these ideas, but come and show me. Well, actually, you can then show them a plethora or a platform, a portfolio of your coaching skills and standards, rather than just it be like a CV where it's a piece of paper saying I've had X amount of coaching experience. Will show me what you've learned. Show me what your standard of coaching is, how your ability to engage a group is like. That's what will make a coach stand apart from each other.
That's brilliant advice there. Do you have any platforms that coaches should go for the start?
So for me, so I'm currently using Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. That's where a lot of coaches currently are as well, and I think the space is becoming a really, really popularized one. Go wherever you need to go. If your target market is, you're looking to outreach to technical players, then do some stuff that really, really engages them. If your target market is coaches and you feel like you can help other coaches, then use that as your platform. Make sure you're using the right sort of hashtags and SEO points, and you'll be able to get the views, and then people will be able to learn from you, and you can learn from each other. Coaching is a community of practice, which means that everyone sort of works together in order to reach a common goal. So coaches will always liaise and talk with each other. Whenever you go on a course or some CPD, it's always going to be having conversations with coaches that you think are higher value than you, and maybe coaches that will look up to you at the same time, and sort of coming together as one big coaching group to learn from each other.
That's brilliant advice there. And I want to add on that. Would you say for the new coaches to go in the platforms that they are certain that they will find the next step in the career, like LinkedIn? Do you think that's a good amount there? Yeah. Can they start posting something that will help them to make a name, right?
Yeah, LinkedIn is huge. I'm a huge believer of LinkedIn. There's been a couple of occasions I have seen someone that I've just followed on LinkedIn in real life, and I've gone up to them and said, look, I'm a huge fan of your maybe your work or your stories or your posts that you put up. And actually we've been able to connect straight away from just that social media connection. Never met before. However, that mutual connection and love for coaching has brought us together. Twitter or X is another one. If you can create a coaching sort of account on there. Previously, when I was running my own business, it was something that I used quite heavily to connect with other people, but also just the messaging apps of the world. Like, everyone has the free will and right to message whoever you want to do. Like, the worst they can do is ignore you if you're not bothering them at 3 o'clock in the morning or a silly o'clock at time of night. Like, send them a message, introduce yourself. You might get rejected, but it's just the same as if you were talking to someone you were trying to get to know. Like, if you get rejected, that's fine. Like, but the main thing is actually a couple of years down the line, if you've developed, they actually might go, oh, I remember you sending a text to me, or I remember you messaging me on LinkedIn about a potential conversation. Now let's have that conversation. So just not being a stranger in a world where you can really drown out.
It's very important to put yourself out there, like to make sure that they seeing you. And you showed yourself that, okay, I can do that now, not just on paper, because everybody has a CV. Everybody can say, okay, I have the CV, I have this experience, but show me what you can do. And that's great advice there. I've seen you start something on your own as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yep. So on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts, I've started something called Football Coaching Global. So previously, I have had my own business where the main focus was coaching kids and making sure that they have the best experience through their footballing careers, whether they be a younger stage of their career or an older stage of their career. For me, I loved coaching kids. However, I always got a real thrill out of coaching other coaches and giving them my experiences, making sure that they don't make the same mistakes that I did when I was younger. But also just sort of being able to talk, travel the world, speak to people with different experiences and in different environments, because people sometimes get caught up in this bubble that football is, it was an English sport, or, it's the English game, whereas actually it's one of the most well played sports across the entire world. And all it needs you to take into account is if you typed in football matches today, you'd get games in the Philippines, you'd get games in India, you'd get games in African countries, in the second division where they've actually got a second division. Do you know what I mean? It's not just England that's football; it's the entire world, and going and experiencing that. One of my biggest things is traveling, and I love traveling. I wish I could do it more. Why not just use that and my love for football and bring that together? So, can I now coach the coaches of the world, or give them advice, give them session plans that I've used to be able to help them and the kids that they teach?
So what's the context of the app? What the new coaches can take from that?
So they can take session plans, they can take tips and advice. We sometimes run polls and questions that they can answer to be able to sort of understand the different opinions from people, but then also being able to see things that they might not be able to see. So we go into stadiums really early and watch the warm-ups of the teams. We go and watch them train at their training grounds. We travel to their stadiums and sort of give a coach an insight into what it might look like on a match day or what it might look like on a training day. So that's the platform, is being able to learn from not only my experiences, but also from the world's.
That's fantastic there. Good luck with that. It's quite nice because, as you say, like, you have to put yourself out there. If you have the dream to start traveling and going around the world while coaching, why not do that as well? And new coaches, I think they can do that as well. Like, it's very easy right now with all these platforms. If you have a great idea, why not put yourself there and go do it? And you never know who's watching. It's always like, you can have like 2,000 people watching your videos. You can start, as you say, community is very important on that. If you have your own community, why not connecting with different coaches around the world? You can meet someone else. You can start having different conversations, and you can find a job from there as well. You never know. It's a really, really good idea. Well done. So now I have a challenge for you. Can you tell us a session for the foundation year? Actually, an arrival activity. Can you just?
Yeah, of course. So the idea that I came up with for the arrival activity was a game of attack the box. So for me, and I can draw this up and send it across as well. I've done this with arrival activities for football sessions, but also for PE sessions. So there are 4 boxes laid out onto the pitch, and there's one centralized box within the middle of that diamond. So 5 boxes in total. You can use cones, you can use bibs, you can use flat markers, whatever it might be, to create that session. The aim of the game is to get from one safe zone, which is the outside 4 boxes, to another without being tackled by a defender. So as the players arrive, they either get allocated to being a defender or they get allocated to be an attacker, depending on numbers. And you can always break this game off into a multiple of different sessions. If they get tackled, they have to go to the self-proclaimed dungeon, as what I called it, for the phase. So they have to go and stand in the middle of the middle box of the 5 boxes and perform a certain skill combo or a challenge to be able to escape that dungeon. So it might be, once they go into the dungeon, today we're working on a couple of skills. Let's just say it's a reverse step over and a Cruyff turn. So can they go into the box if they get tackled, 3 reverse step overs and 3 Cruyff turns, and then that gives you your ticket to escape. The progression to that might be that the progression to that might be that a teammate can save them from the dungeon if they give them a high five. So working on that teamwork element. So if a teammate sees that you're in trouble, can they attack the space without being tackled themselves, beating the player, and then giving you a high five to allow you to escape? That would be my arrival activity that I would use in a foundation phase.
That's actually really good, and you can work on the social skills as well for the team. And it's quite in the foundation phase. Normally, like kids that don't know each other or they're a little bit shy, and you can start, as you say, like start this high five thing. Is quite nice to hear. Great session there. I would steal it. So
please do.
Before you go, thanks for everything. Can you tell us something that we didn't discuss today and we should discuss as coaches when we start our coaching career?
I would discuss, so if I was talking to myself as a younger coach, I would really like to tell them, like I said, to be patient, to make sure that they understand that it's a journey. You're not going to be able to become the next Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho in a day. But I would also like them to understand the difference between a manager and a coach. So for me, when you're coaching the grassroots section, you are never a manager. You are always a coach. And that's really, really key to understand. You're there to give the players the best experience possible and not to manage the team. I think managing the team can be really misconstrued. I think it's something that you need to look at for an older age group, being able to understand the tactics and formations and sort of ideologies of the game. When you're in the foundation phase, it should just be being a coach, making sure that the players have the best opportunity to grow and develop, and giving them the best experience possible within their grassroots footballing career.
Perfect. Danny, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Not to worry, mate. You're absolutely fine. Anything.
Thank you so much for today. It's been really, really good. I'm really happy that I have you as the first guest here. So, thank you so much, and see you next time.
Perfect. See you later next time.
Thank you, mate. Have a good day.